So today we're going to be making this adorable little dish, sushi dish, candy holder, whatever it is you would like it to be. I like the design because it's perfect for holding your chopsticks. You put it on in many different directions and it keeps the chopsticks up off the table, which is what you want to do. You're going to want whatever you're going to use for your impressions. I use this little finding from the, you can get them at a fabric store or wherever, thrift store, sometimes an old doily or something. It works good for stuff like that. I've also used this type of rope, like coated rope. Impresses very well into the clay and cleans up really nicely. But today we're going to be using this cute little wood imprint. I believe I got this at the dollar store as well. And you can see how much it has shrunk, this bowl, in its course of its drying and firing and glazing. But this is the piece that I use for the base. You would want a pin tool and perhaps something to compress the clay with, some water and a sponge. Also some slip for joining your seams. I use a rolling pin to roll out my clay, and I also use this handy little wallpaper roller. I keep it on hand because it works really well for impressing these things into the clay without, you know, bantering around a full-sized rolling pin. Works really, really well. And you also might want to try and find, well, you know, you can cut the piece and you can prop it up on the ends, but depending how wet your clay is it going to hold? So look for some, I'm on the hunt for dishes that have a unique shape to them that I might want to use to make something of this kind of shape. Now it can be used in different ways, but you can see it's a little bit oblong, a little bit different shaped, and I'm going to use this as my base. So you're also going to need some plastic to line the bowl with so that it doesn't stick to the pot itself. So just a nice light little piece of plastic. Saran wrap will work, or like a dry cleaning bag is perfect. So I think that's about all on the need to gather list. So if you want a moment, grab that. You can pause the video if you like. And I'm going to get some clay and start wedging it and laying it out on the table. Okay, the clay is rolled out and ready to go. Just going to, the rolling pin does it pretty well, but I'm just going to use this credit card to compress the clay, going both directions. You can see I've got a little bit of I'm using some reclaimed clay, so I've got a couple different colors in here of clay, different types of clay actually. Now I'm going to turn it over. Do the same thing on the other side. I don't particularly like the canvas look unless I'm going for that on in my pattern design. And full swipes is nicer, gives you a nicer finish. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to be using a template that I made that is 6 by 10, and I'm going to go where, see how I can make best use of this clay here. Ooh, very wet. Now I have marked on this template my halfway, my midpoints going both directions I will definitely need it as a marker for this line here because that is the edge that we're going to be folding over. Oh. Just set that back in the bag. It's a good start, huh? Okay. So I do want to know where my midpoints are, especially on the ends. And so I'm going to make a very slight impression on my edges. And I'm just going to measure edge to edge, lining up those impressions. I want to know where the middle is, so I'm just going to put a little dot there. And on my edge to edge here, that's 6, almost right on there. So there's the middle of my piece right there. I like to work on a edge that is not on the canvas so that I can smooth both sides easily. So we will be turning these over. Now I got these at the dollar store. They're just a non-slip cookware, but I still like to use a little bit of cornstarch on them. So when I flip it over, I will be putting some cornstarch on there when I flip it over. So just to clean up the back. So let's see if this is going to be long enough. This doesn't seem like it's going to be completely long enough, so I will have to pull it and move it. So now I'm going to decide on my layout. And I know I'm going to have to continue that there, so I'm going to start holding it down. So I'm going to start by pressing very gently but firmly to get it started. I don't want this moving on me after I start the imprint, so hold it with both hands. And I'll make sure it's all even. And now just continue what I missed here. The 2. I'm going to do the same on the other side. mark the middle there so that I can see where to put my stamp. That one seems got to have a bit of a crack, so I'm going to switch to this one. And I'm going to line it up with that mark in the middle. Now, good point here. A little bit of cornstarch or baby powder will keep a lot of these things from sticking. So I'm going to try to do that again. You don't want to have to do if you don't have to, because you don't want to have to try and do a double imprint here, which is what I have created. So here we go again. Lovely. Okay. Now our line across the middle, line that up again. I think I'm going to do the cut to 3 inches. Now the base of my bowl is a soft circle, so it doesn't have to fit exactly into that, but that is going to form a nice flat base. That's another reason a bowl like this is so good, because it has a flat bottom so that you know it's not going to be as rocky. So I'm going to go all the way to 3. I'm just going to make a line at this point. I'm not going to actually cut it. Fairly close. Okay. Now, depending on the amount of overlap that you're looking for in your bowl, I like this line to be actually separate from that and not blend in, so that they actually stand alone as a design feature. So I am going to Okay, so now we need to decide on what the overlap is going to be, and we can do that with our template as well. Just grab the scissors. So I've already marked on here 3 inches on each end. I'm just going to cut that. And let's take a look and see what that's going to look like. So this is basically what I've got. And I'm going to go one each way. So I'm basically going to be making that shape. Let's see how that looks inside the bowl. And these sides will automatically curl up a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. I think that's probably what I did on the other one. Now that's quite an overlap looking at it like that. So let's see what we got here. I'm going to get a pen. And I'm just going to mark that. So you can see now where the overlap is going to be on the template. And then on the back, we can do exactly the same thing, as we can mark that as well, if we're happy with it. I might go a little bit farther actually. We'll go a little bit farther. I don't think it's not an exact science because it's each one ends up very unique. Let's see how that looks. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to cut this out of my template. And if I do want it to be exactly the same, I can put it on the other side and it's pretty much the same. I'm going to lay this on top of my plate again. And using my pin tool, I'm just going to put a light line here. Just going to trace this design on here. Just lightly like so. Now what I'm creating is my full pattern and where my I'm going to be scoring and putting slip in order to make this work. So I'm going to lift this up, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to set it onto one of these sheets. Or I can flip it over, it would be easier. So now's my time to just do a quick little, not too much pressure, but just enough to clean up this back edge, get rid of that from the imprint into the, and now if you're working in a club situation or something, you might want to put your name on it at this point. So now because I flipped it straight over, using your template, again, straight up, if you mark it on the back, this tells you where your scoring needs to be on the back of the other piece for the overlap. Okay. I think if you don't understand what we're doing right now, it'll make sense in a moment. And I'm going to try and keep it a little square. So now that I have it flipped over, I'm going to open up my slip. My water. And I'm going to give it a little bit of a, just in that area. If you don't have one of these cool little score tools, you can use your pin tool. You can use a comb. There's lots of different things you can use to make this design. It's a little easier to do it now than when you pick it up and try and just overlap the corners. So okay, so again, I'm going to just put a little bit of powder on here because I'm going to put it on another one of these little handy dandy things. Now you could just be flipping this over on your canvas if you're not worried about the canvas marks. I've got another board here I'm going to flip it over onto. Throw that away. So now we're ready to cut the lines and do the shape, but before we do that, we're going to need the slip again. Before we do that, we're going to get the plastic ready for our dish. So this is a veggie bag from the grocery store. It's nice and thin. It's going to it's going to cause less wrinkles and stuff. We want something that's nice and fine that's not going to cause any problems there. So I'm going to get it ready. Set it aside for a moment. Now I've already scored the back of this. You can see on this side here already, so it's going to line up with where it's going to cross over onto this piece. So now I'm going to slip and score this piece. And the reason it works well to mark it first is because you don't want to mark up where you're not going to be crossing, and you don't want extra lines and stuff on there. And I call this making clay Velcro. This is how you get clay to stick to itself again. All right. Okay, I'm ready to make the cut. So you can use your ruler if you want, or if you're good at making a straight line, cutting a straight line. So now we have our guidelines. I'm going to lift it up and I'm going to cross this piece that has been scored over the other piece. Now I'm going to hold that together at the top. I've got my hand underneath and I'm going to push the pieces together, but not so hard that it's going to, you know, compress them or get rid of this edge, because this edge is, you want it to remain as a prominent feature here. So I'm gently lifting it up. I don't want to crack the clay. I'm going to be very gentle. Same on the back. Just want to make sure that I'm supporting it now. And if you've got an extra sponge or something, you can even just set something underneath that just for a moment while you get the other end done. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lift this edge up that's already been slipped and scored, right? And I'm going to cross these ends over and gently push them together. Now I can kind of peek underneath and see how things are looking under here, but I'm not going to flip it over at this point. Just going to make sure that everything looks as good as I can see for right now. Going to give it a chance to kind of set up before I do too much else with it. I'm going to get rid of those lines on the edges here. I don't want that to become a soft spot. Okay, push that aside for a minute. I've got my bowl ready, and I'm using it with the lower part sticking outwards because that's the shape that I want this to take. And I'll lift it up gently off of there and set it down right in the middle of this dish. Now, if you push down a little bit from the outside as you're putting it in the dish, you'll get a little less stretching as you push this out. And I am going to push it down because I want this bottom to be flat. So make sure that I'm as much in the center as I can be. And by doing this, I know that it's not going to rock and roll when I put it on the table after it's fired, because it's going to conform to that nice flat bottom that the template dish has. So, there you see. Now watch for your edges, make sure there's no weak spots or cracking, and I'm going to curl mine up so that they match the shape of this. I mean, I could curl them over if I wanted to, like this, if you wanted a curled over edge, or you could have them curl upwards, or you could have one do each way if you wanted to. You know, do you want it to conform to the actual shape of the dish, like this? Or do you want it to be a bit of a curl over? See what I did on the other one. I'd say it's more of a straight upwards. I think I'll go with that on this one too. Now once it's set up a little bit, I will do a little more cleanup on it. You could spend some time right now just with a brush or chamois or a light finger and a damp finger, and just clean up your edges a little bit at this point. Just watch that you're not misshaping, because clay has a memory, and if you let it sit in a position for a very long time, for an extended amount of time, it will remember that shape, and it might go back to it in the kiln, in the firing. So before you put it away to dry, make sure you've got everything exactly how you want it to be. And once it's leather hard, you can go back and do a lot more of your shaping, and you can see. So after this has dried for a little while, we will come back, check the bottom seam, and check our shape again, clean up any of the other edges that need it. And there you go. We're more than halfway there. Oh, don't let it roll away out of your bowl. Okay, I'm going to cover it up, put it in the drying cupboard, probably come back and check it maybe tomorrow. So here they are, all dry and ready to be bisqued, all cleaned up, and then voila, here's the finished piece. I glazed it with 3 coats of the Amaco Blue Rutile, and I'm really happy with the way the detailing showed up. So have fun and happy potting.